Good evening, everybody from Carrow Road. Am I on the huh? I look like I'm on a little bit of a huh. Hopefully I'm okay, and hopefully it's bearable and you can cope with me. And I've just realised, as I press recording, that I've left my coat inside. So I'm going to end this broadcast definitely shaking and freezing cold. But we're at Carrow Road. The lights are slightly off. The main floodlights are off anyway. The lights in and around the ground remain on. And Norwich City have won here this afternoon by a 0-0 over QPR. Certainly, as the title suggests, a case of substance over style. There wasn't a lot of entertainment in terms of their performance, and we'll delve into all of the details in terms of that. I guess in terms of the game itself, all there is really to talk about is the goal. A sumptuous Gabriel Sara pass, as only Gabriel Sara seems to be capable of doing in this Norwich City side. Sort of hits it with a bit of backspin underneath, gets a brilliant float on it, and Hwang brings it down beautifully. Really good, intelligent movement to get between Dunn and Cook. And as Asmir Begovic ran off his line, a slight angle. I'd have to watch it back in real time. It looked like Begovic presented him with too much of the goal, but still a really cool finish. And after everything that he's had to endure on a personal level with allegations in South Korea, travel, etc., he took that goal very coolly indeed. And I thought, in general, his shift up front was pretty tireless. And you can see, I think, in and around the 60th minute in this corner, he gave chase to a ball, won a throw in, and was basically keeled over because he was that out of energy. But to be honest, when I do these, I talk about performances, I talk about the way Norwich have played, I try and talk about trends, I try and talk about projecting stuff into the future. I thought Norwich were not really poor, but I thought they were poor today. In terms of their performance levels, in terms of their work in possession, I didn't think they displayed enough control in the game. I thought they defended well at points, coupled with QPR, who have scored 11 goals all season, really struggling to create opportunities and maybe not being dynamic, creative, quick enough to construct chances in the same way opponents have. They didn't catch Norwich in transition as much. And it was interesting speaking to David Wagner post-match. He spoke about the emphasis that they've put on defending and how there may need to be a shift in the way that they play in order to get results. And that may have to sacrifice entertainment. To be honest, this place was pretty flat all afternoon, and that was reflective of the game. It kind of went as I felt. I thought Norwich would look to be quite solid and score a goal and then defend on it. They had one shot on target all afternoon, and yes, QPR are much improved under Marti Cifuentes. They're playing a completely different brand of football. They are, in my view, better than their league position in terms of collective squad. If they could add some goals, I think they would get out of what they're in at the moment pretty quickly. It's just probably a case of whether that gap becomes too big before January. But Norwich didn't dominate possession. They didn't really control the game. I thought QPR probed a lot with the ball, but weren't necessarily incisive with that. And it's all very well and good saying Norwich got their first clean sheet in 8. Brilliant achievement, hooray. But by equal measure, they've played a team who aren't great at constructing chances beyond Sam Field's late chance when he should have scored and rescued a point for QPR. They really didn't test Norwich that much. Osman Kaikai had a shot across the face of goal. Elias Chair had one in the first half that he floated into the arms of George Long. I think Powell had a couple of drives past either post in either half as well. But beyond that, there wasn't a clear-cut chance Norwich had to defend. And yes, partly that is because of the way Norwich defended centrally. But by the same token, there is also an element of what QPR were doing involved in that as well. And the two probably married up to be quite a poor contest on it, to be honest. It looked like two pretty poor sides facing off against each other, or in the whole. Of course, the result, which is the most important thing, particularly after Cardiff, which was epic, and the comeback was excellent. And of course, lots of people have made a play of how internally, of how big a moment that is. In reality, it was 4 minutes where they were able to win a game of football, and today they've also won a game of football. It's really interesting at the moment. So this is where I've just kind of spoke to David Wagner. In the back of my head, I've got Ben Napper, who's in the stands today. This kind of view that one of them is speaking about how they maybe need to change in order to get results, and then you've got one stood in the director's box who said publicly he wants to see his side control games and be protagonists. And Control doesn't necessarily have to mean possession, but that is a route to gaining control of football matches. You can control a football match without the ball. As someone who's worked under Arsene Wenger, I don't get the sense that Ben Napper is kind of that guy. So it's really interesting to hear this kind of difference in position that we've got at the moment. We obviously haven't heard Ben Napper speak much, but what we have heard kind of contradicts what David Wagner said about today's game. And if this is representative of what Norwich City are going to try and do moving forward, and he's right, they absolutely do need to be better defensively. I said it at Cardiff, trying to score 3 goals to win every game, that's not a sustainable way to win games at this level. But I'm not utterly convinced that that's a sustainable way to win games at this level either. You play a team with more nous, with more quality, and Norwich are going to play 2 of those in the next week. I think this result, this performance may look very different. And that's the problem I think they have, because if you play like that, where you try and grind out a win, particularly at home, and I know that results here in particular over the last 3 games have been really difficult, and they did need a win, and it did need to come up at all costs. But I think the type of game that I really don't want to be disrespectful to QPR. So anyone of a QPR persuasion who's watching this, I hope it doesn't come across this way. But they were winless in 11 moving into this contest. They've looked, as I said, they've looked a lot better under new management in the last 2 games. But they haven't scored many goals. They're in the bottom 3. This is a game that you want to see Norwich have a bit more control in. You want to see them create chances, build confidence. I'm not really sure I saw that today. And in that regard, I'm not sure whether really questions have been answered. Of course, it's a win, and it's worth pointing out as well. They're now 4 points, or were 4 points off the top 6 when I last checked. That's an immense positive. They got a clean sheet. That's an immense positive. I've kind of spoken about that a little bit. I'm just not sure whether this is sustainable. And I'm sure, look, we will find out, because I think Norwich will adopt a very, very similar approach at Watford. I think they'll adopt a very, very similar approach at Bristol City. I just fear that teams with a bit more attacking edge are going to cut through them. And if you fall behind playing this style of football, I think it becomes very interesting as well. But also, I think there's a deeper point to this, which is the way that David Wagner was trying to get Norwich City playing at the start of the season, the way that they actually had a real success playing in the opening period of the season. That wasn't that. They weren't playing like that. They were playing energetic, high-octane, front-foot football. And I kind of said this after Sunderland. And I think just because it's a win, it doesn't really alter much. I think you have to try and get your team playing in a certain way to have long-term sustained success. And this is probably underpinned, I think, to a criticism which has ran throughout the football club, which is that there's been a lot of lurching and a lot of maybe reactivity to stuff instead of proactiveness, and that feeling that they are in control of an outcome. And that's kind of what today felt like to me a little bit. But again, I will keep reiterating, they won a football match. They've won 2 football matches on the bounce. This is all very, very good, particularly after the run of form that they've been on. And that's perfectly okay. You can look at the result in isolation and say, yeah, very good. 2 wins and 2, 6 points, 4 goals, 2 conceded, happy days, progress. You can also then look, I think, underneath that, which I'm sure Ben Napper will do. 1 shot on target. QPR had more than that. They had more shots this afternoon. They had more possession of the football this afternoon, which, relatively isn't necessarily the most defining stat in the world. It's, of course, what you do with the ball. And as I said, I felt they were probing more than they were incisive. But I think that's more a reflection of what Cifuentes is trying to get them to do. You've got to remember they were a Gareth Ainsworth team 3 or 4 weeks ago. They played in a very dramatically different style to what they're trying to do now. That's kind of a process. So for them to look as composed with the ball compared to Norwich, who kind of went ahead and sat, to be honest, particularly second half. There was a period after the break where they really got penned in. I think it's okay to maybe want more than that, and it's okay to maybe feel that there should be a little bit more than that to this Norwich City side. So I'm kind of shrugging my shoulders a little bit. I'm not quite sure how to feel about this result. Important, of course, in terms of everything that I've said, but I'm not sure it really does enough to change the dial in terms of the narrative that a lot of people have around this head coach and this team at this moment in time. And for all of maybe talk and feeling of the playoffs, again, I don't want to lean into last season, but it kind of feels like a fairy at the moment. Do you believe in fairies? Personally, I'm not sure that I do, and I'm not sure that I've seen enough. But of course, again, you could argue on the flip side, Norwich have players coming back. you need games like this to rebuild confidence, obviously put those defensive foundations back in place. So, yeah, I'm shrugging my shoulders. I'm a bit conflicted. I didn't particularly like watching it. I didn't think it was a great game of football. I thought the atmosphere in this place was flat, and probably that's reflective of what we saw on the pitch for large spells. It was short of entertainment, and I think so. I'll make a point now. I'll lead into something else that I wanted to talk about. Norwich City starting 11 today, an average age of 29.8, which was fascinating, really. It's the highest average age that any team in the Championship has fielded in a starting 11. And as you know, at this moment in time, Norwich City squad has 11 players over the age of 30. 7 of those are contracted beyond the end of this season. I know Ben Napper feels that this squad is already too old. So again, I'm beginning to see contradictions here between a head coach fielding a team like that, and he didn't have an academy graduate in today. I need to double check, and it'd be interesting to maybe get your guys' view on this. When was the last time Norwich fielded a league championship game or any game without an academy graduate? That feels like it hasn't happened for a little while. Gabriel Sara was the only player under 27. When you are... And I think this is problematic, and I'll explain why. Not just because of the reasons that I've said in terms of the performance, but big picture, it's problematic because when you are so reliant as Norwich are on player trading and shifting talent and developing players and selling them on to make money and financially, I'm not really sure that you can carry a team that has an average age of 30, to be honest. It's not really great, and again, it all feeds into maybe this short-termism that exists, and maybe that partly feeds into the narrative around David Wagner as well. This kind of inability to see, not necessarily him building for the long term, but how he is featured in that long term with the players. Like I say, the sporting director's already taken his verdict. He feels this team is too. I keep wanting to say old, but I recognise 31, 2, 3 isn't really old, but in football terminology, it's old. He feels that the squad's average age is too swollen. He needs to bring that down. That's going to take time. And this is where I am at the moment. And this is why the results are so interesting, because Norwich are winning games. And it maybe feels like there's a slight contradiction between Ben Napper coming in and what David Wagner is trying to do at this moment. And it's, for me, how long this contradiction can last and how long it can, I guess, continue, and whether that can be masked by results for long. Hwang, as I said, scored a really good goal. But yeah, back to the age point. George Long 30, Stacey 27, Duffy 31, Bart 33, Yanulis 28, Sarah 24, McLean 31, Hernandez 30, Fashnak 30, Barnes 33, Hwang 31. That's above average. Well, as I've said, it's an extremely above average starting 11. I asked David Wagner about it. I don't think he was too conscious of it. He obviously has led during his time as Norwich City head coach with a willingness to embed experience into his side. I thought you could see that at points when Norwich City were trying to attack beyond Jack Stacey, who was really dynamic and provided a real outlet down the right. I thought they looked a little bit laboured in terms of their effort, and Hwang as well, to be fair, who provided an energy. I'm not sure Ashley Barnes offered that much from an attacking perspective, and in possession, I thought Norwich City were pretty poor, to be honest, and whether that's a confidence thing, a structural thing, a mix of the two, I'm not quite sure. And I probably was sat there for most of the afternoon going, if QPR had an attacking edge and they had a bit of quality beyond Elias Chair, who I really rate at this level, I think they could have unpicked and left here with at least a point. And that is why ultimately I probably feel that many people inside Carrow Road, outside Carrow Road, won't be particularly, I don't want to say impressed, because it's a win, right? And we all love a win, of course we do. But again, I'm trying to think bigger picture. I'm not sure it will really answer any of the questions or silence any doubts that Norwich City fans have around David Wagner and this group of Norwich City players. That will obviously only be answered in the long term. And 4 minutes in South Wales and a win at home, 1-0 win where you've had one shot on target and been bettered in a lot of the data. Obviously, I know people will say, well, the one that matters is the scoreline, of course, and goals scored and goals conceded. And Norwich have edged all of those today. But the underlying data is kind of what you have to look at for sustainability. And that's why I'm stood here going, I don't know if this is sustainable. And Norwich now have 2 away games where I think if they play like that, they will struggle to win either of those, maybe any of those. So that's it, really. I think there needs to be an uplift in performance. And I felt you could see at points they lacked John Rowe's dynamism and athleticism and willingness to get on the ball as well. I thought McLean is emerging pretty consistently now as one of this side's best performers, most consistent performers for me in midfield. I thought it was the type of game that suited Shane Duffy and Danny Bart in terms of Lyndon Dykes wasn't someone who wanted to stretch them in behind. That didn't create the big hole of space that we're used to in transition. And QPR also probably weren't as active and willing to get involved in terms of pressing Norwich as other teams have. So all of that kind of played into Norwich's favours a little bit. But hey, look, the headline is Norwich City have won here by 1-0. If you're ecstatic about that and you're delighted about the win, you don't care about anything else, I absolutely, completely understand. My job, of course, I can't come on here and lie to people. I try and say what I think, and I try and talk about performances. I've done that pretty consistently. If Norwich have played well but lost, I will say they've played well but lost. If Norwich City have won and not played great, I will say that. And I didn't think I think that was the case today. But crucially for David Wagner, I guess they've won the football match, and that was the most important thing. And I think QPR fans will leave ultimately probably feeling that if they had a bit more firepower, if Sam Field put his boots on the right feet at the end of that game, they could have easily left here with a point this afternoon. And I felt actually 1-1, 0-0 probably would have been a fair reflection of the contest as a whole. On to Watford we go. I'm going to get into the warm. Thank you all very much for watching, not just today but throughout the season so far. Really looking forward to this stretch of games. Obviously, we've got a clean run now till March, no more internationals, which is fantastic. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday evening, Sundays, wherever you're watching this. As darkness descends on Carrow Road, 3 points for Norwich City. Happy days. See you later.